Circles. So a circle is a set of all points in a plane that are fixed distance from a given point in the plane. The given point is called the center, and the fixed distance is called the radius. So, of course, we have a circle, and then that middle point is the center. Right, the center gets a fancy labeling, H comma K. Okay, oops, thought I was, oh yeah, that's good color. So because it's the center, it gets fancy labeling, H comma K. So then if I put a point P right here, right, any distance, we'll pretend like that line matches, any distance from the center to any point on the edge of the circle is that fixed R radius length. So from the center out and then basically make the circle around are all the points P. So a circle has an equation that is R squared equaling x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared. Essentially, if you think of r as your radius, right? And then x is just like, say, the point on the plane, x comma y, then really you're just finding the distance away horizontally and vertically. Let me go with orange. Right, so basically like the same as we did for the distance, we are finding just the distance on the horizontal, right? So the change in x, and the distance for the vertical, the change in y. So that then becomes just a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? For all the way through for the triangle, right? Like all 360 degrees around. Right, basically we would just rotate it all around to get every point on the circle. So notice that your change in y is y minus, oops, I forgot it was not a color. Here, let me get a good color. So notice the change in y is height, so top minus bottom, so that's y minus k. Our change in x is, we could do right minus left, left minus right, x minus h. So then Pythagorean theorem says you square both sides, right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this star highlight, future you, whatever you need, this is the standard equation for a circle. Standard equation for a circle. We love standard form of equation because we can just look at the equation and pull out the center, HK, and the radius. You just square root whatever you're equal to. One thing to note, though, is that notice the standard equation says it's x minus h, y minus k. So then just note that we're going to look at it here in a hot second, but just say I have 9 equals x minus 3 quantity squared plus y plus 2 quantity squared. This is a radius of 3 with a center of 3 comma negative 2, right? Because standard says y minus k. So to get y plus 2, we have to have that double negative. So just keep that in mind whenever you're working with circles. So example 4, the diameter of a circle has endpoints, -1, -4, and 5, -4. Find the center of the circle. So if we draw a picture, pretend like that's a circle, not an egg. So here's the center, that's what we're looking for. I know the diameter, say, again, not to scale, just for the picture. The diameter has the endpoint on the left and on the right. Well, remember, the center is dead center, so we can call that AKA the midpoint. That's all you're doing. So the center is the midpoint. So the center is equal to the midpoint. And we know from the previous video, that's just x of 1 plus x of 2 over 2. So -1 plus 5 over 2, comma, the y's, right? The y1 plus y2 over 2, right? It's just the average of the 2 points, the average of the x's, average of the y's. So 5 minus 1 is 4 over 2. -4 minus 4 is -8 over 2. And then we get what? 4 over 2 is 2. And negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. Ta-da! There we go. So this circle has a center of 2, negative 4, because you just used the midpoint equation. So here's the standard form of a circle. So again, it just stems from Pythagorean theorem, right? So r squared is equal to x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared with a center. Oops. Pretend like I can write well. H comma k. And of course, the radius equal to r. So standard form. We'll look in I know we said like standard form is nice. What's another form? The other form is general form. We'll look at that in a hot second. But general form is basically the standard form just distributed out. So that would be like 0 equals ax. Well, oh no, there's no a. Forgive me. Where's my color? Where's my blue? Here it is. X squared plus ax plus y squared plus by plus c equaling 0. Okay, so general form is essentially just standard form, but distributed out. We like standard form again because we can just pull out the center and radius. General form, we have to complete the square to get to standard. General form is fine. It's just not as, nice to work with. So example 5. Write the standard form of the equation of a circle with a radius of 6 and center 0, 0, then graph. So I want, without any explanation, I want you to pause the video and just see what your gut tells you. Play when you're ready. All right, so if the center is 0, 0, well, then that means my HK, whoops, sorry, I forgot I was a highlighter, means my H comma K is just 0, 0. And if the radius is 6, then r squared is 36. So I have 36 equals x minus 0 quantity squared plus y minus 0 quantity squared. But we don't really need the minus zeros, do we? Nope. So we end up with 36 equals x squared plus y squared. And if we graph it, we have the center at 0, 0, and then we're just going to go up 6, right 6, down 6, left 6, and then just kind of connect the dots. Mine always look kind of egg or stewy head shaped, so forgive me. Oh boy. Yeah, not my best circle. That is definitely loppy, but hopefully yours looks better. Not too bad, right? Hopefully. Come see me if you have questions. Oops, sorry. So 6, same thing. Pause the video, try this one. All right, let's dive right in. So center negative 1, 3. So I'm going to just go plot the center. And then if I have a radius of 2, I'm going to go left 2, this would be right 2, left 2, 1, 2, up 2, down 2. And then just make my circle. Ta-da! The equation, again, standard form, says r squared equals x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared. So we're just going to slap that in appropriately. So 2 squared equals x minus h, which is a negative 1, and then all quantity squared, plus y minus k, which is 3 quantity squared. And then simplify. 4 equals x plus 1 quantity squared plus y minus 3 quantity squared. Ta-da! Again, hopefully not too shabby. Come see me if you have questions. If y'all remember, let's see, my email is LD1168. Okay, so please can email me if y'all have any questions. Okay, 7. So backwards, here's the equation. Now, what's the radius in the circle? And draw. So again, recognize that it's x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. So then my h and k are right there, x plus 2 So remember, if it's x plus 2, that's really x minus negative 2. So what is h? H is negative 2. If it's y minus 1, then that tells me just straight out of the gate that k is equal to positive 1, right? It's opposite of your intuition because standard form says x minus y minus. So whenever you're pulling out the center, you have to change those signs. One of those annoying math things. Go opposite your intuition. So the center then is negative 2, 1. So I'm just going to plot that on our graph over here. And then it's equal to 25. So that says that r squared equals 25. So r is just 5. So to graph, I'm going to go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, from the center. Sorry, I didn't say that. From the center. And then just kind of make your circle by connecting your dots. Oh, that's like the best circle I've done so far. Look at me go. Again, hopefully not too crazy. Hopefully not too bad. Okay, so 8, we'll do 8. Why not? Optional 8. Write the equation for a circle whose diameter has endpoints of 3, 5, and 6, 7. Oh, 6, 7. My son, even though he's 4, he still says 6, 7, and then he giggles. It's very funny. Okay, so endpoints. So remember that the center is going to be the midpoint. So that's going to be 3 plus 6 over 2, comma 5 plus 7 over 2. 3 plus 6 is 9, so 9 halves, or 4.5 if you want. 5 plus 7 is what? 12 over 2, which is 6. So we have a center at 9 halves, comma 6, or 4.5. That might be easier for graphing, comma 6. So then the radius, remember that the radius times 2 is equal to the diameter. So what we're going to do is 1, find the diameter length. Find the diameter length. And then 2, divide the diameter by 2, and that's the radius. Then we have the radius, and we just slap it into the equation. So I want you to pause the video, practice your distance formula, and then play when you're ready. Okay, so distance of the diameter is equal to the square root of x1 or x2 minus x1, so that's 6 minus 3 quantity squared, plus 7 minus 5 quantity squared, right? It's just the change in x squared plus the change in y squared, because it's just Pythagorean theorem, which is the square root of, let's see, 6 minus 3 is 3 squared, plus 7 minus 5 is 2 squared. 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4. So the 9 plus 4 is root 13. Oh, okay, great. Okay, so diameter is root 13. Not a beautiful number, but it just is what it is, right? So then the radius, if 2r equals diameter, so 2r equals root 13, then the radius is root 13 over 2. Again, it doesn't say it had to be a pretty number, it just is what it is. Okay, so let's change. So then the equation of the circle is x minus 4.5 quantity squared plus y minus 6 quantity squared equaling root 13 over 2 quantity squared, right? Because it's radius squared, or that's just 13 over 4. Ta-da! That's the hardest one. It's also optional. So if that tells you anything, but we had the time, why not? Or skip through. Okay, so here we are, a general form of the circle, and where your favorite pastime, completing the square, comes into play. So generals, again, equation, general form of a circle is x squared plus y squared plus ax plus by plus c equals 0. So how do we go from general to standard form? Is by completing the square. Your favorite activity. Okay, no, I know I'm joking, but we have lots of practice to do. So remember, completing a square, you are essentially making the trinomial. You're finding the third portion of a trinomial that's missing. So I like to group all of my letters together appropriately. So my X's with X's, my Y's with Y's. Oops, that's a minus sign. Minus, I think I just changed colors. Yep. Oh, well, it'll be all right. And then again, numbers, just numbers on the other side. So x squared plus 12x plus y squared minus 14y equals 21. Now I'm going to create my little skeleton. X squared plus 12x plus blank. I'm going to slap parentheses around it just so that I get that extra oomph, that extra emphasis of like, that's x's, this is y's. So if I added 2 blanks on the left, we have to what? Add 2 blanks on the right. Good. So then I have my little setup underneath. Remember, the letters drop, the operation drops. Letter drops, operation drops. You take that middle number and divide by 2. So that's 6. Then up and over, right? You square, right? 6 squared to get the last one. So what if I add 36 on the left, I add 36 on the right. Or the middle number gets divided by 2, so that's 7. And then my little skeleton kind of tells you what to do, right? 7 squared is 49. But if I add 49 on the left, I got to do it on the right. So now all that's left to do is add 21 plus 36 plus 49, which is 106. And there you go. Ta-da! That's it. So we know that the center is, remember, -6, -7. You have to mentally change that sign. And then the radius is, well, let's see. Does 106 reduce nicely? Let's see. 106, well, I know it's divisible by 2. That's no, 2 and 53. So it's just root 106. Easy enough. Okay, I want you to pause the video and try B on your own. Really, truly. Pause the video, try it. Okay. So again, I'm going to group my x's together. X squared plus 6x plus y squared plus, oops, excuse me, I always been making the y minus 4y equals, and again, I'm going to kick the 8 over, so it's -8. Oh no, I get to the same thing up here, so that's not 21, it's -21. Again, y'all probably screaming at the screen, and I'm just in my own little head. So it's actually 36 plus 49 minus 21, which is 64. Yes, obviously that makes things way easier. Yay, so much easier. Y'all, again, this is why videos are not the greatest. I need y'all to find these little silly human errors. That's root 64, which of course is 8. Oh, much prettier, much prettier. Okay, so back to B. So sorry for that detour there. I'm going to create my skeleton. So I have my X set up. And then we'll do the same for the Y's. Is this pen color good? Some of that is pretty light. I'll change it here in a hot second, y'all. Give me 1 second. Okay, so remember the letter drops, the operation drops. This number in the middle gets divided by 2. And then think up and over, right? We square because it's even telling you what to do. The letter drops, the operation drops. That middle number gets divided by 2. Oops, I forgot my plus blanks. Then up and over, again, that's what we added. So if I add a 9 and a 4 on the left, we add a 9 and a 4 on the right. So then Let's see. 9 minus 8 is 1, plus 4 is 5. So we have a center of -3, 2. Remember, change the signs. And a radius of √5. Yay. Go us. And that's circles.